Hey everyone, it's Lexie. Welcome to Top 5 Wednesdays. If you're new to Top 5 Wednesdays and want to learn more about the group, I'll have everything linked down below for topics and such. So today's topic is books before I joined Booktube. So this was one that I had a lot of fun with because I feel like a lot of the books that I do read now are part of, like, I try to stay away from like the cult classics on Booktube, but I've always been a unique reader and just like in terms of what I've read, so it was fun to kind of go back and look at the books that I've really enjoyed before I kind of started Booktube. I think I've kind of learned, especially in the beginning, like I was really wanting to read what everyone else was reading, so I purchased all these books and I ended up giving most of them away because they weren't ones that I would really read. So I've become very selective in what I read. Of course there's some books in here that are quite popular on Booktube, but these are the ones I kind of read before. So without further ado, let's get started. So this was my favorite series when I was in high school, and it is the Rizzoli and I series. I always talk about this book series, but this is the book series that really got me into reading when I was a teenager basically. So I would read one book, finish it, and then on Fridays my mom would pick me up from school to be walking to town and get the second book. So that's what I always associate these books with, but I just really love this series. They're basically follow two women who work within like the Boston PD. Dr. Moriarty is the medical examiner and Jane Rizzoli is a detective for Boston homicide. So they work together to solve crimes, and I really like these books. They're very dark and they were loosely based off of the Rizzoli and I series, which is right back here, which was on TNT that just finished last year, which I loved. But yeah, I love this series. Her new book comes out in August this month as well. I want to say August 15th, so I'm really excited that there's a new book coming out in this series. But I've loved this series. I've kind of like, this is where I really grew up reading these, just how much I really enjoyed them. So yeah, I love this series and I don't hear a lot of people on Booktube talk about it, which is sad, but I love it. So this was a book that I was obsessed with when, I guess, around the time the movie was coming out, and this is a book that I got for Christmas that year, and it is The Help by Kathryn Stockett. And I remember reading this book when I tore my ACL the first time and was having my knee surgery after that, so I always read that this time. So when I tore it again last October and had the surgery back this February, I read it this time, so it'll be my tradition. But yeah, so that's what I always associate with. But I love this book. The movie is like one of my favorite movies of all time, so I've just really was obsessed with this book way before, like years before I started Booktube. But yeah, I love this book. I think it's really important too, and it also kind of, it mixes between like a very important topic but also sprinkles in some humor in as well, which I think makes it more approachable to people and more like people will kind of more accepting overall. But I really love this book. It's probably one of my favorite historical fiction books. So I read this book way before the hype that this like the book had when the movie came out, maybe a couple years before, because I remember it was December. I was going into my third year of university, and it was Gone Girl by Gillian and Flynn. I read this book like within a day. Like, it was so intense. I remember I'm like one of those people that likes to get to class really early, so I get to class at like 8 o'clock even though class didn't start at 9, so I would just sit there and read. And this was one I got at Half Price Books, and oh my goodness, I was obsessed with this author, like, and just how like crazy it was. And then so I read all her other books. Like, I was so obsessed. Like, I think Dark Places is my favorite of hers, but yeah, this one I was really obsessed with. I made my mom and sister read it because I was like, it was amazing. This was before like all the hype came out around it, so yeah, like I said, it was just amazing and I was obsessed with this book. So this, like, the last two books are books that are also kind of similar to Gone Girl, where I read them right before like the books started to become really popular, and this one is no different, and is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. And I read this one way before I started Booktube and I've loved it. I've read a few of her books before, and this was one that I picked up when it was just released, so I know there's a lot of hype around this book just because of the new HBO series that was very well received. But yeah, I love this book. It's kind of like a mystery but with like sprinkles of humor about society and just all of that stuff. Like, this book was just really good, and I don't know, I loved it before a lot of people did. Like, I was really into like in these dark with like a little bit of humor in them. So yeah, I've really enjoyed these books overall, and they're just a lot of fun. This author is probably one of my favorites. What Alice Forgot was one of my other favorite books, so I highly recommend you check this author out because I feel like she needs to be talked about more on Booktube, because I feel like a lot of people will really like her book. And also The Husband's Secret's really good too, so go check those books out. And this is a book that also, like I said, I read before everyone else started reading it and before it became popular. Like, I pre-ordered this book, like that's how before the bandwagon came along. But it was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite books ever. It follows two sisters in France during World War II, when the Nazis kind of occupied there, and the different roles that they have during World War II, I guess, the roles that women had. So like, I read this book, I pre-ordered it, and I loved it, and I was totally obsessed with this book. I've read it twice when I read it, and then I read it again. Like, that's how much I loved it. It was just so good. I could not put it down, and it was just so moving. And I'm really happy a lot of people have really jumped on to this book and how popular it's become, because I think it is well deserved, and just how amazing and moving it is. And I also like how it showcases the role that women had during World War II, because especially in like history courses, they always teach you what the men did on the front, and it's like, well, the women had a role too. So it's always, this has a nice little feminist twist to it. But yeah, I was obsessed with this book way before I started my Booktube channel, and I've talked about it many times since then. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what books you loved before you started Booktube. So yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.